The night air hung thick with mist as dozens of candles flickered softly in the town square of Marrow's End. Each flame was a quiet plea, a fragile hope held by neighbors who had gathered to pray for the safe return of Harlan Quill. At the center stood Odessa Quill, her face calm but unreadable, bathed in the warm glow of the candlelight. She spoke gently, urging the crowd to hold on to hope, to believe that Harlan would come back to them. Beside her, Silas Dre placed a steady hand on her shoulder, offering silent support. To the outside world, they were united in grief, two souls bound by loss. But beneath the surface, their connection was far more complicated, a secret that would soon shatter the trust of everyone watching. How could the woman leading the prayers be the very person responsible for the man they mourned? What dark truths were hidden behind those steady eyes and whispered words? Tonight, you will hear a story of love, betrayal, and a desperate attempt to hide a terrible crime. A story that will challenge everything you think you know about trust. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that the thought of betrayal never crossed your mind? Maybe you've seen a friend or neighbor put on a brave face while hiding secrets that could destroy everything. In Marrow's End, the community believed in Odessa Quill's grief, shared in her prayers, and stood by her side as she led the vigil for her missing husband. But what if the person you're mourning isn't a victim of fate? What if the danger came from the very person you thought you knew best? As the story unfolds, you'll find yourself asking, could you recognize the signs if someone close to you was hiding a terrible truth? Would you know when to speak up, or would silence become your prison? This isn't just a tale of crime, it's a warning. A reminder that sometimes the people we trust most can be the ones who hurt us the deepest. Stay with me, because the truth behind the candlelight vigil is about to come to light, and it's more shocking than anyone imagined. Welcome back to Altar of Secrets, where true stories meet the kind of choices that keep you up at night. Shout out to all our amazing subscribers, viewers, and supporters. Here, we follow real occurrences shaped into dramatized narratives, not just to shock, but to reveal the kinds of patterns most people miss until it's too late. So if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like if you're here for stories that leave more than just an impression. Let us know where you're watching from. We're building a community that looks a little closer at what we think we understand. Now let's return to Marrow's End, where beneath the candlelight and quiet prayers, a secret was waiting to be revealed. Marrow's End was the kind of town where everyone's business was common knowledge, and secrets were hard to keep. Nestled between rolling hills and quiet streets, it was a place where neighbors greeted each other by name, and life moved at a steady, predictable pace. Harlan Quill was part of that rhythm, a man known for his sharp mind and quiet dedication. As the town's forensic accountant, he was the one who sifted through numbers to find the truth hidden in plain sight. Harlan's work was respected, even admired. He had a reputation for being thorough, never missing a detail, and his recent investigations had stirred whispers around town. He was uncovering irregularities in environmental permits and financial records that suggested someone was bending the rules. But while his professional life was intense, his personal life was growing distant. The man who once shared laughter and quiet evenings with Odessa was becoming a stranger, consumed by his work and the weight of what he'd discovered. Odessa Quill was well known in the community too. She had a way of drawing people in with her warmth and charm, often leading local projects and events. Yet beneath her confident exterior, she was wrestling with loneliness. Harlan's growing obsession with his investigations left her feeling isolated, and the space between them widened with each passing day. The tension between Harlan and Odessa was subtle at first, small silences that stretched longer than usual, and conversations that ended abruptly, and a growing sense of distance neither wanted to admit. Harlan's discoveries weighed heavily on him, and the more he uncovered, the more withdrawn he became. Odessa watched as the man she once knew became consumed by suspicion and fear, his eyes shadowed by secrets he refused to share. Their home, once a place of comfort, grew colder with each passing day. Odessa's frustration simmered beneath polite smiles and carefully chosen words. She longed for the connection they had lost, but found herself increasingly alone in a marriage overshadowed by doubt and unspoken accusations. Meanwhile, Harlan's work was taking him deeper into a web of financial misconduct tied to the town's environmental permits. The stakes were rising, and so was the danger. He knew that exposing the truth could cost him everything, but he was determined to see justice done, even if it meant risking his own safety. As the strain between them grew, Odessa's world began to shift in unexpected ways. The loneliness she felt opened a door to new possibilities, and soon a chance encounter would change everything. Odessa met Silas Dre on a cold evening at a community meeting focused on environmental concerns. Silas, an environmental compliance officer, was quiet but attentive, listening carefully as Odessa voiced her frustrations about the town's leadership. There was something in his calm presence that drew her in, a contrast to the tension she felt at home. Their conversations started casually, exchanging thoughts on the town's issues and the challenges they both faced. But as days passed, those talks stretched into late-night phone calls and secret meetings away from prying eyes. Silas became a confidant, someone who understood the weight Odessa carried but didn't judge her for it. For Odessa, Silas was a breath of fresh air, a chance to reclaim a part of herself that had been lost in the shadows of her marriage. The connection between them grew quietly but steadily, filling a void that Harlan's obsession had left behind. It wasn't just about escape, it was about finding someone who saw her, really saw her, in a way that no one else had. Yet beneath the surface of their growing closeness, a dangerous line was being crossed. What began as comfort soon became something more complicated, and the choices Odessa made would set a chain of events into motion that no one in Merrow's End could have predicted. As the weeks passed, Odessa and Silas found themselves drawn together more often. Their meetings became a refuge from the growing tension at home and the weight of Harlan's investigations. Silas, with his quiet strength and steady presence, offered Odessa something she hadn't felt in a long time: understanding and companionship without judgment. They met in places where no one would recognize them: a small roadside diner after hours, a secluded bench in the town park, even brief encounters in the shadowed corners of community events. Each meeting was charged with a mix of relief and risk, a secret world that existed just beneath the surface of Merrow's End's everyday life. Odessa told Silas about her fears, her loneliness, and the growing distance between her and Harlan. Silas listened, offering comfort and a sense of hope that things could be different. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe that maybe there was a way out of the life that had become so suffocating. But the deeper their connection grew, the more complicated things became. Silas was not just a bystander. His own work intersected with Harlan's investigations, and the lines between personal and professional blurred. The secret they shared was no longer just about comfort. It was a dangerous alliance that threatened to pull them both into a web of lies and betrayal. Odessa's world was shifting, and with every stolen moment, the stakes grew higher. What started as a quiet escape was becoming a force that would change everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and survival. The night Harlan vanished was unlike any other. A fierce storm had rolled in, drumming rain against the windows and sending gusts of wind through the empty streets. Inside the Quill home, silence hung heavy. Harlan's car was found abandoned near the riverbank, its doors locked but the engine cold. His phone lay untouched on the kitchen counter, and on his desk a note caught the eye of the first responders. "I know what you did." The town was shaken. Harlan had always been a steady presence, a man who sought truth in numbers and facts. Now he was missing, and the questions multiplied. Odessa stepped forward, her voice steady as she called the community to gather in the town square for a candlelight vigil. Her words were soft but filled with conviction, urging everyone to hold on to hope and pray for Harlan's safe return. Silas stood close by, his hand resting lightly on Odessa's shoulder, a picture of shared grief and solidarity. The crowd, holding flickering candles, listened intently, their faces reflecting a mix of concern and faith. To them, this was a moment of unity, a collective effort to bring a beloved man home. But beneath the calm surface, the story was far from simple. The note, the abandoned car, the sudden disappearance, all pointed to something more tangled than anyone could guess. As the vigil continued, whispers began to stir, and the line between hope and suspicion started to blur. The morning after the storm, the town was restless. Harlan's disappearance was the talk of every household, every shop, every corner of Merrow's End. People whispered theories, some hopeful, others filled with doubt. The police launched a search, combing the riverbanks and nearby woods, but no sign of Harlan was found. Odessa's public grief was convincing. She appeared on local news, her voice breaking as she pleaded for information, painting a picture of a devoted husband lost to an unknown fate. Her tearful interviews stirred sympathy and rallied the community around her cause. Silas remained by her side, his quiet support lending weight to her story. The candlelight vigil became a symbol of the town's collective hope. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers gathered, their candles flickering against the night sky. Odessa's words were carefully chosen, each sentence designed to inspire faith and unity. She spoke of love, loss, and the power of community, drawing everyone into a shared moment of prayer. Yet as the vigil stretched on, subtle details began to catch the attention of a few observant eyes. Odessa's timeline of events was too neat, her sorrow too rehearsed. Silas's presence, once comforting, started to feel calculated. The note found on Harlan's desk, "I know what you did," hung over the town like a question no one dared to ask aloud. The community's hope was genuine, but beneath it, a quiet unease was growing. The story they had been told was beginning to show signs of strain, and the truth was waiting patiently to be uncovered. Detective Merritt Voss was no stranger to complicated cases, but something about Harlan Quill's disappearance didn't sit right. From the start, Odessa's story seemed too polished, too carefully crafted. Voss noticed small inconsistencies, details that didn't quite line up with the timeline Odessa provided. Surveillance footage showed Odessa's car near the river the night Harlan vanished, contradicting her earlier claims of being elsewhere. Silas's sudden appearance in Odessa's life also raised questions. His calm demeanor and steady support seemed almost rehearsed, as if he was playing a part in a story written long before the vigil began. Voss began to dig deeper, looking beyond the surface of grief and hope. Emails between Harlan and an anonymous informant surfaced, hinting at a confrontation that was about to happen. The messages spoke of financial irregularities and threats, painting a picture of a man who had uncovered something dangerous. Voss pieced together accounts from neighbors and friends who recalled heated arguments between Harlan and Odessa in the days leading up to his disappearance. The detective's investigation revealed a growing tension that had been hidden from the public eye. Odessa's resentment toward Harlan's obsession with his work was more than just frustration. It was a crack in their relationship that widened into something far more serious. Silas's involvement complicated matters further, blurring the lines between ally and accomplice. As Voss followed the trail of evidence, the community's trust began to waver. The woman who had led them in prayer was now under scrutiny, and the comforting image of shared grief started to unravel. Questions multiplied, and the truth seemed just out of reach, waiting for the right moment to surface. Detective Merritt Voss approached the case with a careful eye, aware that appearances could be deceiving. Odessa's grief, while convincing to many, began to show subtle signs of being rehearsed. Her answers to questions were measured, almost too precise, as if she had anticipated every inquiry. The detective's instincts told him there was more beneath the surface. The surveillance footage was a turning point. It captured Odessa's car near the river late at night, the very place where Harlan's abandoned vehicle was found. This contradicted her earlier statements and raised immediate red flags. Why had she not mentioned this? What was she doing there at such a late hour? Silas Dray's background also came under scrutiny. His role as an environmental compliance officer intersected with Harlan's investigations, but his rapid closeness to Odessa after Harlan's disappearance seemed suspicious. Voss discovered that Silas had access to some of the same documents Harlan had been reviewing, and his calm support for Odessa appeared less like comfort and more like calculated involvement. Further digging uncovered a series of emails between Harlan and an anonymous source, warning of serious corruption tied to local officials and environmental permits. The messages hinted at a confrontation that was expected to happen soon, one that could expose dangerous secrets. Friends and neighbors recalled hearing raised voices and seeing tense exchanges between Harlan and Odessa in the days before he vanished. The detective began to see a pattern: a marriage strained by secrets, a woman pushed to her limits, and a man determined to expose the truth no matter the cost. Silas's role blurred the lines between friend and conspirator, making the investigation even more complex. As the pieces came together, the community's faith in Odessa started to falter. The woman who had been the face of hope was now a figure of suspicion. The candlelight vigil, once a symbol of unity, now felt like a stage for a carefully constructed story. Voss knew the truth was close, but uncovering it would require patience and precision. The community hall was packed, the air thick with anticipation and unease. Marrow's End had gathered to hear the latest developments in Harlan Quill's disappearance, but no one expected the revelations that would soon unfold. Detective Voss took the floor, his voice steady as he laid out the evidence piece by piece. Financial records showed discrepancies that pointed directly to Odessa. CCTV footage contradicted her earlier statements, placing her at critical locations during key moments. Witnesses recounted heated arguments between Odessa and Harlan, moments that had been hidden behind closed doors. The anonymous emails surfaced, revealing the depth of Harlan's discoveries and the threats he faced. Silas's involvement came into sharp focus. His role was no longer that of a supportive friend, but that of an accomplice who had helped cover up the truth. The community watched in stunned silence as the carefully constructed story began to fall apart. Odessa's calm demeanor cracked under the weight of the evidence. The woman who had led the town in prayer was now facing the harsh light of truth. The betrayal was palpable, and the shock rippled through the crowd. Trust shattered, replaced by disbelief and anger. This was more than a missing person case. It was a story of love turned deadly, of secrets kept too long, and of a desperate attempt to rewrite reality. The town of Marrow's End would never be the same. As Detective Voss continued, the room grew heavier with tension. He detailed how Odessa and Silas had worked together to hide the truth. The financial records revealed a diversion of funds. Money that Harlan had discovered was being siphoned off through falsified environmental permits. Odessa's name appeared repeatedly in the documents, tied to transactions that didn't add up. The CCTV footage was damning. It showed Odessa's car near the river late at night, contradicting her earlier claims of being at home. More unsettling were the moments captured inside the Quill residence. Heated exchanges between Odessa and Harlan, voices raised in anger and desperation. Witnesses described seeing Silas acting nervously in the days following Harlan's disappearance, his usual calm replaced by unease. The community's shock deepened as Voss revealed the note found on Harlan's desk. "I know what you did." Was not just a cryptic message, but a warning Harlan had left for Odessa, a final attempt to confront the betrayal he sensed was closing in. Odessa's silence spoke volumes. The woman who had once stood before them as a pillar of strength now seemed fragile, her carefully maintained composure unraveling. Silas, too, showed signs of regret, his eyes betraying the weight of his choices. The town meeting ended with a mix of disbelief and sorrow. Marrow's End was left to grapple with the reality that the woman who had led their prayers was the one who had shattered their peace. The betrayal cut deep, leaving scars that would take years to heal. The courtroom became the final chapter in a story that had gripped Marrow's End from the moment Harlan disappeared. Odessa and Silas faced the consequences of their choices, their secrets exposed under the harsh light of justice. The evidence was clear, and the verdict left little room for doubt. For the town, the trial was more than a legal matter. It was a moment of reckoning. Odessa, once a respected member of the community, was now remembered for the pain she caused. Silas's quiet support was revealed as a betrayal, shaking the foundation of trust in the people they thought they knew. Detective Voss, who had followed the case closely, reflected on the fragile nature of human relationships. How love can turn into something dangerous, how grief can hide guilt, and how the truth often waits patiently beneath the surface. The case stayed with him, a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. For the people of Marrow's End, the story was a painful lesson in trust and vigilance. The candles that once symbolized hope now served as reminders of how easily appearances can mislead. Odessa's actions showed how desperation and hidden resentments can push someone to cross lines that can never be undone. This case encourages us to pay closer attention to the struggles of those around us, to listen when something feels off, and to understand that even the most familiar faces can carry unseen burdens. It's a call to recognize the warning signs before it's too late. As the town began to heal, the community learned to rebuild not just their sense of safety, but their faith in one another. The story of Harlan, Odessa, and Silas remains a stark reminder. Trust is precious, and once broken, it leaves scars that take time to fade. Before we close, I want to hear from you. What lessons do you take from this story? What might Odessa have done differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here. Until next time, remember that trust is fragile. Handle it with care, because once broken, it's never quite the same. Stay safe, stay aware, and thank you for joining us today. See you on another story from the Altar of Secrets. Bye for now.